Max, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, bro, you're back in Hawaii now, are you?
Yeah, I just got back a few days ago.
Yes. Sweet. Where were you in California for a while, or?
Yeah, so I was in California for a little while, and then I just flew into Hilo, Hawaii earlier this week.
Sweet, man. What are you doing back in Hawaii?
So I'm going to UH Hilo now, and I'm studying marine science here.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. And
Yeah,
you've been getting some bit of traction on TikTok lately. I
yeah,
think.
yeah. No, it's been pretty crazy. Like the past month has been wild. I've had a few videos like do pretty well, and funny enough, one of them was of someone touching a Hawaiian monk seal just a few islands over on Oahu. So that's kind of a big thing for me going to school here. Like I'm going to do my best to protect the wildlife and make sure people understand the best they can, like before they come here.
Yeah, yeah, sweet, yeah. And your TikTok, man, I kind of stumbled across it on like a For You page, and then I had like 4 or 5 people send it through to me and be like, "Oh, give this guy a follow, give this guy a follow." Um, what content are you doing on there? What's the go with the TikTok? What are you doing on there?
So I kind of started off originally doing strictly shark content, and I had that video blow up in like February, and then kind of since then I've started talking about climate change and just more ocean conservation topics, kind of just broader things basically, because I really do enjoy talking about sharks, but I felt like there was more that I could be doing. So started talking about plastic pollution, climate change stuff, like I said. I just think there's so much to talk about. So
Mm,
just kept on going.
yeah, awesome. And you back in Hawaii now. You're doing marine science, yeah, or marine
Yeah.
conservation science, yeah. What inspired you, bro? Because like I really struggled to have the motivation to go back to uni or do anything like that. Although I want to
Yeah.
learn it, I can't do it the traditional way. Can you kind of explain to me why and why you're doing that?
Yeah, so I actually had the same problem. When COVID hit, it was my spring semester, so I ended up leaving the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where I was a marine bio major, and it just kind of made me hate school being online for that long. And
Hmm.
I wasn't really learning much. I didn't like the labs, and I wasn't really having fun. So for a little while, I just didn't know what I was doing. And then I started TikTok in January because I was bored, and I think talking about all this stuff that I genuinely care about and wanted to talk about, I was doing a lot more research on my own, learning about stuff that I had never learned in school or in university anywhere. So it kind of made me fall in love with marine science again. And I started doing some research on schools. I felt like this was a good place. It was a little bit of a better major for me than marine bio because it is a little bit different. Um, so yeah, I just felt like it was a good time to get back into it, get a degree, and then just try to make the biggest impact I can afterwards.
Yeah, awesome, man. What is it marine science when you're at university? Like, what is it that you're actually studying? Like, give me a rundown on that. Because for me, I think that it could be so broad, but a few of my friends that have done like just like generalized conservation, I'm like
Yeah.
so surprised on the amount of stuff they've learned. So, what is it?
So like I was doing marine bio at Hawaii at Manoa, which that is kind of self-explanatory. It's biology focused on the marine stuff, and then marine science kind of focuses on ecology, oceanography, chemistry, biology. It's a lot broader, which was something that just interested me. Like I didn't want to just focus on the biology aspect. I kind of wanted to learn everything I can. So there's a lot of stuff I'll be able to learn, and I have a boat lab this semester. I'll be able to learn a ton of stuff that I've never even known before. So
Fuck yeah,
I love learning, so I'm pretty excited at the chance to be able to do that.
that's awesome. Yeah. Um, and like, I mean, I know what motivates you. Obviously, just the generalization of the fact that we need to make change. But you speak a
Mhm.
lot about sharks, man, and I'm yet to understand fully and get really into why sharks are in so, and I guess learn why sharks are so important. What is it
Mhm.
that what can you give me some sort of understanding on why there's this big push that we need to stop killing and culling sharks?
So the thing about like Jaws is one of the big movies that really made people hate sharks, and since then, a lot of people have just been fighting an uphill battle to save them, and people just simply don't understand how important they are. And the reason that they're important basically is that they eat dead and dying animals on coral reefs, which
Mm.
I mean is insanely important, and people tend to just not understand exactly what they do. And so eating dead and dying animals on the reefs, it keeps the ecosystem healthy. It keeps the energy being recycled throughout the ecosystem. They keep the food web balanced. Their prey populations stay exactly where they're supposed to be. And if sharks were gone and the prey populations of their if these prey populations exploded, which they would without sharks, like one example of that would be the reefs would be like overrun. They would turn from coral based into algae based, and when that happens you get red tides, which sucks all the oxygen out of the water, and then there's going to be massive die-offs, kind of like what's happening in Florida right now. Like that's a big thing they've been dealing with, and it's really important. People just are missing the point. And like part of my inspiration was Steve Irwin. He was like my biggest thing, and it started like when I was 5. I That was when I started getting into the ocean and all of his stuff. And I think one of the biggest things I was able to take away from him was all these animals people tell you to be afraid of, and the media is like they're monsters, they're killers. They're really not. They're necessary, and they really don't want to harm people. They don't even want to be near people.
Yeah, it's it's so sad, man. Like, I know we chatted last week, and you were telling me about like an organization based here in Queensland. For anyone
Yeah.
listening, I'm based here in Gold Coast, Australia at the moment. Due to lockdown, I'm basically stuck here in Australia. I can't get back overseas to do our normal work. But yeah, so there's this organization you were telling me about that's trying to promote and stop shark culling. So I mean, what is shark culling? Like, what's the inside of that? Because it sounds so morbid.
Yeah, so the organization is it's a film. It's called Envoy Shark Call, and I've been working with the director Andre Burrell to on some of their social media stuff. Like I run the TikTok, and that's been really fun. But so basically, what shark culling is what Australia calls it, what the states of Queensland and New South Wales call it, is basically it's a program that's meant to protect swimmers from sharks, which it's not accurate because it's fishing equipment that is intently designed to kill sharks. Like the
Mm.
sole purpose is to kill sharks. And one of the biggest issues with the program is that it kills almost every animal except for sharks. Like it kills whales, dolphins, turtles, manta rays, and these are endangered species that are supposed to be protected, but they're still getting caught in these nets. And one of the worst parts about all of this was in the documentary Envoy Shark Call, they were talking about the case in which I believe it was Queensland was fighting to keep drumlines inside the Great Barrier Reef Marine Reserve, which doesn't really make sense, right? Like that's
Mm.
supposed to be a marine reserve. It's a protected area. So they actually had drumlines and they're killing sharks in the marine reserve. And they lost the court case to keep them in. So instead of removing them, they put them just on the barriers of that
Mm.
marine reserve. So they're still killing sharks, and there is no reason behind it. They One of their key witnesses actually um, had said if they stopped shark culling tomorrow, there would be no difference in swimmer safety. Like
Mm.
it doesn't do anything. They have been proven wrong in a court of law, and it's just insanely frustrating because there's no reason, there's no data to back it up. And Hawaii actually did the same thing. So they had culled sharks a little while ago. It was a while ago actually, but they figured out that the program just didn't work. There was no point in keeping it running. It didn't help protect anyone. It was really just damaging the ecosystem.
Yeah, right. Well, why? I mean, why do what's the benefit of the government coming out and saying, let's cull all the sharks? Like, is there any other benefit apart from that facade of like swimmer safety?
The only reason that they won't say that they're wrong is because the politicians are it's all about reelection, right? Like they are
Mhm.
worried about being the ones to say that they were wrong.
Right.
So it's really disappointing because they're putting the whole ecosystem at risk. I mean, Australia has a ton of biodiversity in their waters. Like you guys have so
Tons.
many animals. The reefs are very delicate and they're luscious. Like all these really cool species, and just intentionally killing sharks is it just doesn't make any sense. Like there is absolutely no data that supports anything.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's so heartbreaking. Like I went to the reef, the Great Barrier Reef last year,
Mhm.
right as we came into summer last year, and every like we arrived, and it was the first time I'd actually ever properly been to the reef. I went when I was like a real young kid, but it was the first time I'd been to the reef. I went with my girlfriend. We stayed for like a week and a half, and the idea of us going was just to go to the reef as often as possible, get in the water. We hired jet skis, we had boats, we even went out sailing, and we were just trying to get amongst the reef and amongst nature to kind of get a feel of what was happening there. Because it's something I'm
Mhm.
really inspired by. And when we arrived in the town, and there's quite a small town, but every single person we spoke to when we said, "Oh, we're heading out to the water today," was like, "Oh, make sure you don't go in the water. Make sure you don't go in the water." And they're like, "Oh, there's like a confirm. There's 100% you're going to get bitten by a shark if you go in the water." And we were like, what? Like, and I live on the Gold Coast. Like, we've got some of the best coastline of surf and some of the best coastline. And we know there's sharks around, but we've
Yeah.
never really had, occasionally, maybe once every 2 or 3 years, there'll be shark attack. Like, and that's what
Mhm.
really surprised me. I was like, what do you mean? And then we caught up with some diver friends out there, and they were like, honestly, it's just a facade. The
Yeah.
local governments have been like promoting the fact that the sharks are going to kill you, and if the sharks don't, the crocodiles will. Um, and there's only like, to be fair, there's one river in this area. We're in Airlie Beach, so obviously the
Okay.
Great Barrier Reef goes pretty much all the way of the north side of Queensland, like pretty much the whole way up. So it's a massive, massive coral. Um, but and when I say the whole way, it's like if you want to drive by car on land, the whole distance of it, it's almost an 18, 19-hour drive. So
Wow.
it's a massive distance of reef. And so we were like right down the southern end of the reef. And we went out diving and with some actual divers, and they were like, honestly, I've been diving here for 18 years and I've seen 2 sharks in the whole time. And they were like reef sharks that are never going to bite you anyway. Like, and
Mhm.
and that was like this big mind drop moment for me. And I was like, what the hell? Like, people back on land that don't even go in the water, don't even want to go in the water, just
Yeah.
have this facade about the sharks are going to get you. And if the sharks don't, the crocodiles are going to swim out of their muddy, they were freshwater crocs. So they're not going to
Yeah.
swim into the ocean where it's salt water. Out about
Mhm.
100, it's about 3 or 4 Ks out to sea is where the kilometers, which is, I think it's about 6 miles. Is that right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a pretty good distance, though. Like they're not. That's not happening.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is I was just mind boggled and I was like, I need to understand where this culture comes from. Even the people running like the events, like the helicopter tours and like all the tourist people were like, oh, make sure you don't go near the water, don't go near the water, like shark infested. And I'm like, bloody hell. And then when we went diving, we didn't see a single shark. We didn't see and we were like, that's really strange. Like, and we were at some stages out at 5 or 6 in the morning, and like that's prime
Yeah.
time to see sharks and stuff. So that's so disappointing. And especially now, I've only just started to understand the fact that there are mass cullings in Queensland for sharks, and
Yeah.
that's the disappointing part. Is that
Honestly, not
being
seeing
infested?
sharks, I think, is probably the scarier thing than
Mm.
actually seeing sharks. Like, not having sharks there is significantly worse than seeing a shark that's not going to hurt you.
What's going to happen if I know you spoke on it before, but what would happen if we genuinely got rid of all the sharks and the ecosystems became unbalanced, how many years would it be before they're completely dead? And how many years would it be before we basically wouldn't be able to survive? Or it would
Honestly, I'm
affect
not
us?
exactly sure how long it would be, but I mean, it's going to start affecting, like, once the ecosystems start collapsing, it's going to go from the top to the bottom. Like, everything's just going to start destroying itself without sharks at the top. And I mean, it's going to lead to massive fish die-offs, which will obviously, it's going to start affecting food production, which, I mean, 3 billion people rely on the ocean for food. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that's almost half the planet. So, that's going to be a massive problem. Oxygen production is probably going to start being affected. And another really important thing sharks do. So, tiger sharks, like in the Bahamas in these seagrass meadows,
Mhm.
they kind of protect these meadows, right? Like, this is a place that they hang out in the Bahamas, and sea turtles will go eat some of the seagrass, but they end up getting scared off by the tiger sharks. So, if there's no tiger sharks, turtles are just going to eat like all the meadows, no more meadows. So, oxygen production goes down. I mean, it's going to affect so many more people, and it's going to be so much more widespread than people understand. And that's why I try to educate as many people as possible on TikTok, because it's really important to me that people understand just like how important this is. Like, I don't want to scare people too badly, but it's so important to me to make them just care about this. And I mean, everybody should. It's really disappointing when I see comments like, just kill sharks, like F sharks, we don't need them. I'm like, did you watch the video? Like, this, the whole point is that we do need sharks. So
Yeah.
it's really tough, and it's probably always going to be an uphill battle, but I feel like no matter what, it's going to be something worth fighting for, because ultimately, like, this is the only planet we have. And I think there was some statistic I saw recently that, like, if we stay on the path we're on right now, we could wipe out all of our coral reefs by 2050. Could be more plastic than fish in the ocean by, like, I think 2040. So it's a dangerous track we're on right now.
Mm. It's it's so tough. Like you were speaking about the seagrass just before. I actually made a video 2 days ago about the importance of seagrass. And something
Yeah,
people don't realize is that an average of per mile of seagrass under the water, it literally can store carbon up to about 10 to
exactly.
20 times more than forests on land. And so like,
Mhm.
and when you think about the scale of it, there's only like I think it's 0.02% of the Earth's of the ocean sea floor is actually seagrass, and the
Mhm.
fact that it's pulling in more carbon than all the trees on Earth is just mind-boggling. Um,
Yeah,
think about it. So it's and I think it's I mean I find it really it's just uneducation, right? Like when people don't understand if we don't if we kill off the sharks, like the fact that that's going to have an effect on everything else, and the fact that people, when they see a shark killing a turtle or they see a shark killing something else, it's the most devastating thing. But um, I guess it's one of those things where it's like that's the process of life, right? Like if that doesn't
yeah,
happen, we are not going to be able to survive. But you
yeah,
mentioned something before about like all the coral reefs on planet being destroyed by 2040 or 2050. And
yeah.
I don't know if you've watched it, but have you seen the latest David Attenborough documentary yet? There's one he
I
released in
haven't, no.
2020. It was really freaking sad. Like he's 94 years old now, so he's getting to the stage where unfortunately he won't be around for much longer, which devastates me because he's one
Yeah,
of the biggest inspirations to my life. But the way he worded this documentary was like, this is it. This is me handing it over to everyone else. Like I've done my part, kind of thing. And then he goes to it was about 30 minutes into the documentary, and he just talks about what's going to happen every 10 years until 2100. 2100, which is 80 years from now, 79 years from now. And it was just like mind boggling to realize that if we stay on the current track we are, especially when it comes to affecting the ocean, we actually probably won't have a human race within the next 79 years. He
Yeah.
said that the population will skyrocket to around 11 million. And then once it gets to there, that's around, I think he said around 2080. And we'll basically be at the stage where we won't be able to survive whatsoever. There'll be no oxygen. The natural disasters around the world will be like monthly to 6 monthly basis of like some of the most traumatic things ever. And I'm like, that it was like the most demoralizing thing. I almost wanted to just like give up everything that I'm trying to do, because I'm like, well, what's the point, man? Like my kids aren't going to be able to have a planet to live on. And then he goes in obviously towards the rest of the documentaries about like the things we can do to prevent it. And it's like people talking to you, people like you, like that are doing the science behind it. It really inspires me to know that we actually still have hope, because and even then you spoke about people commenting like the most ignorant things. We get it all the time, like climate change isn't real, climate change is a hoax. And it's like, I just can't even fathom how like the ignorance behind some people. And it is so demotivating. Like it is tough to kind of see people that are like that. But yeah, it's such a tough thing. Sometimes I ramble on and I don't even know where I'm going. I really just feel so passionate about it, and it's just disheartening. But I want to go back more on what you're doing in Hawaii, and what I guess kind of give people some sort of concept of what you're going to be able to do in Hawaii, what kind of stuff you're doing, and what you got for the future.
So part of the reason that I'm really excited to be here is I was in Los Angeles for like since the beginning of the year, so I wasn't right next to the ocean. Like I'm very close to it now, which I am really excited for. So I will just be able to show people like hands-on stuff, kind of some of the science, some of my classes I think will be kind of interesting to talk about, make videos about, just kind of the experience of what it's like to do marine science in general, do it here. So I do plan on doing like shark diving and manta ray diving over here. I think a big thing for me is just showing people that these animals up close, and even just videos of being near them, interacting with them. I think it's so important. Like what you were saying when you were diving, and all those people who are so scared of sharks, I think if they were to see sharks with their own eyes or watch a video of someone else interacting with them, I think they would at the very least, start questioning, like, are sharks as dangerous as everyone tells me they are? Like, people are going to start to figure out that they're really not that bad. So I am just very excited for more hands-on stuff here, and hopefully changing some people's minds about sharks.
Yeah, awesome. Are you said you're going snorkeling later today. What are you planning for that?
Honestly, I'm not too sure what exactly I'll see. I went to the beach yesterday actually, and I saw a bunch of sea turtles, which was super cool. It's like this pretty chill beach. These sea turtles were just coming into this little pond, and it was just like right in front of me, eating some of the seagrass. And one of the more frustrating things actually I saw yesterday was me and some of my friends had to tell people, like, do not touch the turtles, because there are of course people trying to pet the turtles, which is just it's very frustrating to see, because it's so easy to just observe them, and it's actually illegal in the state of Hawaii to touch the sea turtle, so
Yeah.
can be a massive fine. So that's another thing about what I'm excited to do here, is just educating people, like, leave the animals alone here. Like sea turtles, Hawaiian monk seals are both endangered animals. So I think that's a pretty important thing. It's just education on this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's a question I've been wanting to ask you, and I wanted to know what your stance on marine captive animals is.
So for in terms of cetacean captivity, like I'm not a big fan of that, like orcas and just some of these animals that are like really, really smart, just super intelligent animals that are kept in tiny tanks. They're forced to do all these shows, and you see all these health problems. And SeaWorld actually just had a 6-year-old orca die I think yesterday maybe, or within the past few days, just kind of out of nowhere, which is pretty abnormal. So in terms of that, I'm not too psyched about that, but I think there are certain animals like that are able to be kept in captivity, like just some fish species, some uh just stuff to kind of get kids interested in them. But
Mm.
something that is pretty cool is I saw they were working on a kind of robotic dolphin. So hopefully
That's
that will
cool.
start. Yeah, so it looks and acts like a real dolphin. So that would be really cool to start seeing that replace actual dolphins in these aquariums that are doing shows. So kids just they don't need to see. I mean, there's really no reason for dolphins to be in there. They're just like I
Mm.
said, they're insanely smart. So I think that would be a cool thing to start seeing them phase out.
Yeah. It's such a tough thing though, because like I I I I come from a family like my sister is a qualified marine trainer. So
Hmm.
she worked and still is trying to work back with training captive dolphins, captive seals. And when I was a bit younger, I just thought it was the coolest thing. You know, there's a I've SeaWorld Australia is right here, and they don't hold whales, it's just dolphins. But when I
Hmm.
was down in Coffs Harbour, it's a little bit south, there's a place called Marine Magic, and they have this like a small. They more so focus on the rescue side of things and making sure that they're
Yeah.
going out and rescuing turtles and dolphins and then bringing them back up to safety. And I volunteered
Hmm.
there for like 6 7 weeks, and it was like the coolest thing because I got to over that time rescued turtles that had been trapped in nets and that were close to dying, and turtles that were 50, 60, 70 years old. And it was like the
Hmm.
coolest thing to experience. But then when it came to the dolphins in captivity, they were literally in a pool, and you could
Hmm.
understand how smart these animals were when they would come and put their noses up on the edge and wait for a pat, by
Yeah.
one of the trainers and stuff like that. And like just looking in their eyes, and then you get that debate on whether it's worth having them in captivity or not. And it's something I'm still really struggling with. If we don't have the ones in captivity, there's not a lot of funding that gets driven towards the rescue side and recovery side of those organizations. And then
Yeah.
also when they capture one that can't be released back into the wild like a baby, they have to have the mums and the support to nurse that baby and teach that baby in the captivity. So it's this really weird process where I'm like, well, where's the stance go on it? Because I know there's a lot of people that 100% are like no captivity. And I'm like, if we do that,
Yeah.
then the rescue side of things will drop off and we'll have some really big issues
Yeah.
with that. So I like asking
That's a
that
point
question.
that like I do understand that. And the captivity, like in terms of the rehabilitation, like I do think that's important. And like Clearwater Aquarium, which is a place here. Like, have you seen that movie Dolphin Tale? It's like about the dolphin that
Oh
lost their
yeah. Yeah,
tail.
that was like one of the most beautiful movies.
Yeah, so that was Clearwater Aquarium.
Gosh.
So like I think that's one of the better facilities that does kind of focus more on rehabilitation. I think that is definitely important. And Dolphin Project is also another nonprofit that I think is pretty cool. They talk. I mean, their whole organization is kind of centered around the whole captivity thing and advocating for these animals. And they made they were talking about sea pens. And so there's a lot of people that say, well, these dolphins can't be released out into the wild again.
Mm.
And sea pens are something that I think are really interesting because it is kind of a captivity thing, but it's a much larger, more natural area that's actually in the ocean for these animals to live.
Mm.
And they had posted a video about some former show dolphins learning how to hunt again. So it is,
That's so cool.
I do think like it is possible to get these animals adapted to sea pens, stuff like that. I mean, they're really smart. So it's definitely interesting. And I would like to see some more stuff like that pop up and maybe some research into how that affects them and just how valuable that is for kind of all of these animals. So
Mm. Yeah. It's interesting though, like they talk about the fact that once you've had an animal in captivity, if it's had any human contact or any unnatural hunting kind of things, then it's basically it can't go back to the wild because it's just going to expect someone to come and hand it food.
Mhm.
And that's like something that I think people don't understand. But I I'm really interested by we were talking about the Bahamas before. I've actually never been over there, but
Mhm.
I'm really wanting to go over there to do some tiger shark diving and stuff because I've seen it and it looks so cool just getting in the water with them.
Yeah, I know that's like Tiger Beach is my dream diving spot.
Sorry, I needed a drink. It's like,
It's cool.
yeah, I saw some friends go over there about 2.5 years ago, and they were just like amongst the water with like, it was like at least 60, 70 sharks, and they just said it was like the most calming thing. Um, and there was on that day, well, the shark didn't attack it, but he had a rope attached to the boat because it was quite a big drift on the water, and the shark just didn't even bite the rope, but as it was going past, one of its teeth just hooked on the side of the rope about probably like a
Yeah,
meter up from where he was, and just sliced the rope. And this is like proper like thick rope for pulling divers out of water and stuff, and off of a winch, and the shark tooth just ripped it just straight shred, like clean cut, and I realized how sharp their teeth is. And sometimes when they don't even realize, like sharks sometimes aren't even trying to attack. I've seen videos of this where they're just coming to see what's happening. And then people put their hands too close to their mouths and stuff, and they lose an arm because their teeth are just so deadly sharp. It's something that I think people don't understand is that sometimes they're not trying to
yeah.
attack us at all, and they are just
No,
being curious. Um, but yeah, I think I'm I'm really excited to come over to Hawaii. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to
mhm.
come over to Hawaii. I've put it in my goals in the next 2 years. No matter what's happening with COVID, I'm going to come over and do some diving there because I've got some friends over there, and now I've got you over there, and I'm going to come diving with
Yeah.
you. So, um, what's something that you're really excited for now that you're in Hawaii, man? That you're wanting to go do?
Um, so one of the bigger things that, at least on the Big Island, which is where I'm at in school, there's really cool manta ray diving. Like there's this dive you can do in Kona, I believe it is.
Mm,
And so on this dive, basically you go 30 feet down. So it's not a super deep dive, but it's a night dive. And what you do is you go down, they put some lights on the bottom that are shining up towards the surface. And um basically the manta rays will come and you can just see them like swooping down like right above you feeding on the plankton, and it's just seems like the coolest thing.
that's so cool, man. I love that. I've actually never seen a manta ray in real life, like a proper one.
I haven't
Um,
either.
Yeah, so that's going to be something to tick off the goals.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Are your family in Hawaii or are they back in mainland?
Everybody's back on the mainland, so I um this is my second time going to school like a few thousand miles away from everybody, so it's definitely a weird thing, but I enjoy just being able to be on my own and just experience the islands with everyone I can meet out here.
Yeah, awesome. How do you deal with it? Like, if there's anyone else listening to this that's wanting to go and study or do something conservation wise away from their family and friends, how are you dealing with it?
Um, you kind of just get used to it. Like I actually grew up in the Midwest here, so I was growing up in the middle of the country when I
Mm,
was younger. So there was no ocean anywhere near me, and it was always something that I wanted to do, and I kind of just embrace I guess the feeling of being far away from home, and I try to not get too attached, like just think too much about the fact I'm in the middle of the ocean, like 2 or 3 thousand miles away from where I used to live, and kind of the excitement of all the new experiences is what drives me to keep going. The motivation to get where I want to be in life because I know this is the place I want to be, and I'm just excited to take all the steps here that I can to get to where I want to. So I know there are some people that might not be able to handle it, but I mean, I encourage everybody to step outside of their comfort zone. Like, I just don't feel like you're going to be able to get the full experience of what life is supposed to be if you just stay in your little comfort bubble like the entire time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And are you when are you starting school? You started because you're only been in Hawaii for a week, yeah?
Yeah, so I start on Monday for me, which is going to be Tuesday for you in Australia. So we're about to start.
Awesome. And how long are you going to be studying the course for?
My semester ends probably around December 20th,
Yeah.
so kind of late December, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's so cool, man. Yeah, it's actually made me think about it though, like going back and doing some sort of study to get like a
Yeah.
diploma or something in conservation so I can understand it properly. But I don't know if that'll happen because I hate
Yeah, come
school.
transfer out here.
Maybe I will. I'll come out to Hawaii and I'll
All
practice my
right.
American accent.
Give you a campus tour.
Yeah. How's living on campus? I mean, you haven't been doing it for long yet, but what's it
No, but
vibe like?
it's all right, honestly. Like, it is so much more chill here than it was at my old school on Oahu. Um, I enjoyed it. I was just hanging out with some friends last night, just played some guitar in the courtyard and kind of just hung out. I mean, it's just so chill. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so cool, man. Well, look, I think I'll we'll wrap it up from here. But I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Um, and I think I'm trying to think. What did we speak? There was a guy that we spoke about the organization that was doing the shark culling. What were they called again? Just so people can go and give them a follow.
It's Envoy Shark Hole, and the TikTok is at Envoy Film, and the director's name is Andre Burrell. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's out on Discovery Plus here in the US to watch, and I am not sure exactly what the release status is in Australia. I know it's been out for a little bit, so there is more information on the Instagram though. So
Yeah, cool.
that's definitely a good place to check out.
Awesome, man. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And it's been really
Yeah.
cool to have you on here, bro.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed talking about all this stuff.
Yeah, sweet. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. I am your host, Jackson Earngey, and today we were joined with Max. I'm going to have his Instagrams and his TikTok linked into the description below. So make sure you go over and give him a follow. If you have any questions for him, make sure you send him a message because I'm sure he will love to reply to you. And if you want to head over to Facebook, we are starting a community page on Facebook, guys. So if you want to be a part of the community where you can ask questions from left, right, and center, anything to do with basically anything environmental based, anything to limit your waste. There's lots of people joining into that group that you can kind of get some advice off to help you live a less waste life and a less impactful life on our planet. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.